Good evening, dear students. Hope you are all doing well. If you guys can see me and hear me clearly, please give a thumbs up in the chat box so I know you guys are with me. Now, today's session, it's not going to be very MCQ oriented. It's more for third minor and third major students. MCQs not so many. There will be more discussion on some of the important surgical procedures that get commonly asked. Okay, so that will be the pattern of the class. Few MCQs here and there, but mainly discussion and mainly how to remember the important pointers, the critical events that can happen in these procedures. Now, most of us, because of COVID, the last 1.5 year, we must not have gotten exposure to these kind of procedures, how they are really performed. And what we read in the books is not really the same as what is going to be done. So what I'm going to do is give you a little perspective and the practical pointers that we need to know when we study these procedures. Okay, easy ones but important ones nonetheless, which we as doctors must know. Okay, so as people are joining in, just let me introduce myself and talk for a few minutes about our platform. So I am Dr. Amrit Nasta. I am a bariatric surgeon from Mumbai and I am your surgery educator on the Unacademy platform. You can follow my profile on the Unacademy Learning app where you'll get updates about my classes and courses regularly. Those students appearing for FMG course has just been launched. It's a TND course. It is available on Plus if you wish to subscribe. And it is a rapid revision course, not much time for FMG. And also there is a rapid revision course for NEET PG. Okay, those appearing for NEET PG 2021. If you are planning for next 2022, a comprehensive batch course has begun yesterday, and that's going to cover all subjects in details, and that is going to be every day evening. And of course, you will get the benefits of our question bank if you subscribe to Plus, which has in surgery itself over 3,000 questions for practice. If you are appearing for NEET PG this year, there is an offer. If you subscribe for 3 months, you get 1 month free. So all you have to do is use my referral code 10 surgery, and that will get you 4 months at the price of 3 plus a 10% discount. Now on our platform there are two kinds of models. There is a plus course or a plus platform, and there is an iconic platform. Iconic gives you benefits of plus as well as prep ladder. Now prep ladder has recorded lectures, handwritten notes and much more. But prep ladder, remember, minimum duration if you subscribe is 1 year. And now there is an offer going on for iconic subscriptions. If you use my referral code 10 surgery, you will get them at much subsidized rates for 1 year, 1.5 year, and 2 year subscriptions. Also, one announcement just happened maybe an hour back. I've shared it on the groups. INI CET date has come. So, does anybody know when INI CET is going to happen? Surprising. They have announced INI CET. Hello, Jaydev. Yes, do you know INI CET कब होने वाली है? They just announced. I just shared it on Telegram. 16th of June. Oops, not much time, yeah. So now is the time to up our game, and let's try to make the most of the time at hand. Okay. Now about today's session. What is it? What am I going to cover? Procedures of head and neck, or the easy ones, the IMP ones. Mainly I will be talking about tracheostomy and airway management, which every surgeon must know. Little bit about tonsillectomy, because those things have gotten a lot of new changes, a lot of advancements, and about bronchoscopy and endoscopy or upper GI scopy. This will be the major components that I will be covering in today's session, and some IMP pointers, some practical pointers, more practical than MCQ oriented. Okay, few MCQ points also I'll give you, but it will be more practical oriented and how to write answers on them. So this is mainly for third minor, third major students, not so much for entrance, not so much. Okay, so let's begin. Let's see how you guys can handle the question. So I will start off with a poll. You can answer in the poll. You should definitely try this one. And this is a very IMP concept that you need to understand. Which of these techniques of airway access is secure and can be utilized long term? Okay, a lot of you are online, so please think about what you are going to say. ये सब आना चाहिए, because this will feature not only in third minor but in final year and in entrance. Everywhere they ask these kind of things. Happy to see most of the people who are here are third minor and third major. Good number of you have given the correct answer. That is excellent. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. Now understand what is the meaning of secure airway. Okay, what is the meaning of secure airway? Secure means something that will remain in place under normal circumstances, something that the patient cannot dislodge. And for all practical purposes, there are only two secure airways. Which are they? When I say secure airway, which are the two secure airways that I need to know? There are only two for all practical purposes. Yes, you can answer in the chat quickly. Tracheostomy should not have been the first answer you gave. Jaydev should have given a smarter answer before that. Tracheostomy to hai option mein. What is the other one? The more important one, the more common one, the one that it's endotracheal intubation. Okay, endotracheal intubation. These are the secure airways. Secure means once I place them, I will be comfortable, patient will be comfortable. All the other ones, these laryngeal mask airway, nasopharyngeal airway, cricothyrotomy, what are they? In what category do they come? Yeah, in what category do they come? Those of you who are making notes, it's not really required. You can download the PDF in the end if you want. That's your wish, or you can make notes as we go along. What do these airways come under? They come as temporary airways. Okay, don't say they are insecure airways. Insecure करके कुछ नहीं होता. They are temporary airways. Okay, now coming to the one that I want to discuss first about surgical airway access, the anatomy. And I'm not talking about endotracheal intubation. I'm talking about anatomy of trachea and what are the different surgical airways that I can access to the trachea. So when we point over here, we feel our Adam's apple. That is my tracheal cartilage, the big one, right? Which is very prominent in males. I have the tracheal cartilage or the tracheal ring. Below that is another cartilage, that is cricoid cartilage. And uske niche will start my tracheal rings. So my tracheal rings are going to start below that. Many of them are there all the way down. Some are in the neck and some go retrosternally. So tracheal ring 1, tracheal ring 2. I am putting tracheal ring, otherwise you will confuse it with thoracic vertebra. That's why I'm not calling it T1, T2. Otherwise you will say, sir, thoracic vertebra kahan se aa gaya? So these are the tracheal rings. Now, if I want to get an airway access in the neck, there are two airway accesses that I can get in the neck. Which are they? Two neck airway accesses. One, of course, is tracheostomy. Which is the other one? Cricothyrotomy. Okay, cricothyroid nahi, cricothyrotomy. In most people, I prefer to do tracheostomy. And what is the reason for that? Why do I avoid cricothyrotomy and where do I do cricothyrotomy? So over here, in between the thyroid and cricoid, there is a structure. What is the structure in between thyroid and cricoid? There is a layer over here. What is that called? Yes, Akar Prabhu. What is the structure called between thyroid and cricoid? Yeah, excellent, Mackie. That is called cricothyroid membrane. Okay, that is called cricothyroid membrane. So when I say I'm going to do a cricothyrotomy, it means I am going to get an airway access through, don't say through cricoid cartilage, it is going to be through cricothyroid membrane. Okay, through cricothyroid membrane. All of these are surgical airway access. Surgical means you need to do some surgery to put these things. Okay, thoda bahut maneuvering surgical instruments are required usually to do these kind of airways. So there are two, cricothyrotomy and other is tracheostomy. In cricothyrotomy, I am going to put or get an access of the airway through this area, cricothyroid membrane over here. The problem if I do a airway access to cricothyroid membrane, what is the problem? Is there any problem? I ask you two questions. One question, Is it easy to do or difficult to do compared to tracheostomy? And what are the problems? That's all you need to know. So of course, this is technically much easier to do compared to tracheostomy, which I'll show you how it is to be done. Compared to tracheostomy, this procedure, cricothyrotomy, is much easier. Much easier. You can do it without any instrument. You can even do it with a pen. If you do it correctly, it can also be done with a pen. So you can save someone's life if they are choking and Heimlich is not working by doing a pen cricothyrotomy. But what's the problem with cricothyrotomy? Why do I say this is not secure? Damage to what? If it's easy, then it can't be damaging. Yes, bolo bolo. Others can also speak. Mahika, Shraddha, your exams are not so far away. Sibal, why is it easy? And what's the problem with cricothyrotomy? Absolutely must know points. As physicians, we need to know. You are going to be doctors very soon. Yeah, no problem. Easy to do then. Recurrent laryngeal nerve, low time needed. Subglottic stenosis. Yeah, absolutely right. So understand the cricoid cartilage, if it gets injured, it will undergo devascularization. Please understand, cartilages in the body don't have very good blood supply. So if the cricoid cartilage gets injured, the cricoid cartilage will fibrose and narrow, and you will get subglottic stenosis. Good one, Palak. You will get subglottic stenosis, which is why if I do a cricothyrotomy, I can't keep it for long because one problem is I get subglottic stenosis. What is the other problem of cricothyrotomy? Please answer quickly because I want to finish at least these 3-4 topics that I have lined up for you fatafat. Injury to what? Let me tell you, cricothyrotomy is the safest procedure for airway access because there is just a membrane. All you have to do is cut the skin, cut the subcute, you will see the membrane, and cut the membrane and put a tube inside. That's it. Even non-medico can do it. Oh yeah, na perichondritis, that's fine. Any other problem? Perichondritis will cause subglottic stenosis. Wrong position. No, what wrong position? This is the most fixed landmark. Everybody has the same thyroid cartilage, cricoid cartilage. You just feel the area in between cricothyroid membrane. Cut the skin, cut the subcute. You reach the membrane and just puncture it. You can put a needle inside. Tube can go wrong place. It's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to go anywhere. So what's the problem if I do that? Now understand, this area is small. Okay, the cricothyroid membrane area is very small. So I cannot put a very big tube. Most of the times I don't even put a tube. I just put a needle. It's temporary. I put a needle. I attach oxygen to it. Okay, so it's going to be temporary. The problem is oxygen will go inside, but there is no outlet. I do this when there is going to be an upper airway obstruction. So let's say the person has laryngeal edema and I can't do intubation. Patient is choking. I do this temporary measure. I just put a needle, connect oxygen, put a small tube, connect oxygen, and oxygen goes. He can breathe. The problem is because this opening is so small and there is no outlet, there will be CO2 retention. No, not subacute emphysema. Good try, but that's not correct. There will be CO2 retention because the CO2 is not going out because the opening is so small. This problem is not with tracheostomy. So this will lead to respiratory acidosis. Because this opening is so small, I can give the air, but there is no outlet. So the expired gases have no outlet. So he gets CO2 retention or CO2 narcosis or respiratory acidosis. So for how much duration can I keep this arrangement of cricothyrotomy? 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, for how long can I keep it? Because this is temporary airway, it's not secure. Temporary means this can be kept for how long? What's the life of a cricothyrotomy? 3 to 5 days. Yeah, anyone else? Different answer? So person is choking, he is in front of you, you cut the skin, cut the subcute, put a needle, he starts breathing again, you attach oxygen, he's okay. What do you tell the patient? Okay, with this needle or with this small tube, for how long can you sustain? Yeah, you can sustain for 30 to 45 minutes, which means this period buys you time to do a tracheostomy. It just buys you time to do a tracheostomy because tracheostomy requires a lot of devices, a lot of instruments for me to secure a more definitive airway. Understood the meaning between the difference between secure and temporary? So secure is only going to be tracheostomy and when possible endotracheal intubation when possible. All these others are going to be temporary. They can be kept for maybe minutes, maybe few hours. They can't be kept for days. None of these can be kept for days on end. Laryngeal mask airway, oropharyngeal airway, you will read all of them in medicine. They cannot be kept for days. That's why they are temporary. Endotracheal tube can be kept for a few days. Tracheostomy can be kept for a very long time. Now coming to tracheostomy. Now understand whenever you are given to describe any procedure, you have to describe the procedure in a certain structure, in a certain pattern, which is what is expected out of you. It has to be done in a certain way. You don't just start randomly what it is going to be all about. There has to be a certain pattern, and this you are going to apply not just for tracheostomy type of procedures, but even surgical procedures, hernia repair, appendectomy, will all be done under the same gamut of guidelines or the same headings. Once you get this, throughout your life, you will never have a problem describing any surgical procedure. And this is a universally accepted pattern. Okay, so you need to know that you cannot rant randomly, that they tell you tracheostomy and you say, okay, give anesthesia, this is the position and this is the incision. Please never start any procedure like that. Never. Criminal. Examiner will laugh at you. Every procedure, when you are asked to describe or write, you are going to go about it in a certain way. The first thing you are going to say is the definition or the meaning of the procedure. And this has to be a very basic interpretation. You don't have to give any, there are no textbook definitions for procedures. You give an approximate understanding of the procedure. So you are going to say, what is tracheostomy? There should be an O here. It is a surgical airway access through tracheal rings. Okay, this is not a textbook definition. This is just what the procedure means. All procedures don't have meaning like this. Like if I have to say appendectomy, it is surgical removal of appendix. If I have to say cholecystectomy, surgical removal of gallbladder, like that. Hernia surgery or hernia repair or hernia raphe, surgical repair of hernia with strengthening of posterior wall. Essay. So when you start off like this, the person on the other end knows you are making sense. What are the types of tracheostomy? What are the types of tracheostomy? Don't say emergency elective, those are indications. What are the types? Anatomical types. High or low or, yeah, very good. High tracheostomy, low tracheostomy, बीच में एक आता है mid tracheostomy. What is this high? What is this low? What is this mid? And which one is preferred? What is high? What is low? What is mid? So again, this is thyroid cartilage, cricoid cartilage, and the tracheal rings. Glottis के relation में, yeah, tell me glottis के relation में what? Absolutely must know things, huh? Yeah, tracheal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. High at level of T1. Then Jaydev is saying high is preferred. Very good. Yeah. Anybody else? So what did I do over here in this area? This was cricothyrotomy. Right. Now go one step niche. If I create a tracheostomy somewhere over here around tracheal ring number 1, that is going to be high. If I create between 2 and 3, it is going to be mid. And if I go below 3, means around 4, it is going to be low. All right. Normally, fifth ring and all go retrosternal. Normally, 4 ring ही feel होते हैं in a normal neck. उससे ज़्यादा नहीं होगा. So thyroid, cricoid, TR1, TR2, TR3, TR4, and in that you can have 4 accesses: cricothyrotomy, which is not tracheostomy, high tracheostomy, mid tracheostomy, and low tracheostomy. Which one of these is the most preferred? Quickly, which one of these is the most preferred, most commonly performed? Mackie says low. Why? Sukhbir, yes, INI-CET date out. I already put it on the group. Oh my god, so one high, one low, one mid. What's happening with you guys? Shraddha, not expected. Can't make such errors. The most preferred one is mid tracheostomy. Most preferred, most common. And there is a reason. There is no मर जाएगी सर अब, हाँ आप लोग का तो हालत खराब है. So what is high tracheostomy, which I perform over here in this area? The problem with high tracheostomy is subglottic stenosis. So just like cricothyrotomy had a problem, even high tracheostomy has the same problem, that if I injure the cricoid during the tracheostomy, it will cause subglottic stenosis. In mid tracheostomy, there is no problem because that will not injure the cricoid. What's the problem with low tracheostomy? Why is this not preferred? Even low should be done, na? Stenosis, काय का stenosis? वरुण फेंकता है यार, फेंक नहीं, कुछ भी नहीं बोल. Impinges on what? Yeah, Arshia is right. There is risk. Yeah, excellent, excellent. Proximity to major vessels like कौन से major vessel आ गए? ICA, no. Please, ICA is at the level of C2. It's formed in the neck at the level of C2. This is over here. इधर नहीं आती ICA. Yeah, thank you, Mackie. Subclavian artery. Okay, यहाँ है ना subclavian artery, clavicle के पीछे. That is subclavian. So the lower I go, the closer I go to subclavian artery. Anything else that can get injured apart from subclavian artery? Not a vessel. Yeah, apices, apex of lung. Good job, Pratik. Apex of lung. Recurrent nerves can get injured in any of them, not necessarily the low tracheostomy. So now you know. That's why mid tracheostomy is going to be preferred. So first you give the definition, then you tell the types if you know, then you tell the indications. Yeah, quickly, I need 4-5 indications for tracheostomy. Quickly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then my students know whatever I teach is going to have a pattern. Respiratory obstruction, what does that even mean? Respiratory obstruction, choking, you got to be joking. Airway obstruction, why should I do tracheostomy? Difficult intubation, I'll do tracheostomy if there is difficult intubation. No. Vocal cord palsy, the first sensible answer I got. Renamed secretion, all over the place. No, don't say malignancy, you have to tell which malignancy. Okay, any malignancy I will not do tracheostomy before surgery. Supraglottic obstruction, okay. All chaos, absolutely chaos. You will write like this in the exam, or you will tell like this in the exam, the examiner will jump from his seat. Okay, group pay you don't do. I mean, you can do in anything, but you have to give more precise answers. So whenever you are asked indications for a procedure as broad as tracheostomy, where you can write 100 indications, you need a structure, very easy structure. Tonsillitis में नहीं करते हैं tracheostomy. Congenital, then you go to acquired types, that is trauma, inflammatory, malignancy, and miscellaneous. The other way of doing it would have been emergency indications and elective indications, but I think that is more difficult to remember. Emergency and elective थोड़ा difficult है. This is much easier to remember. Congenital and acquired. And now put in your mind congenital diseases which will cause airway obstruction, mainly in the larynx. See, understand, if the airway obstruction is in the nasopharynx, for example, like choanal atresia. Just giving you one example because you know ENT more than me. If there is choanal atresia, I will do endotracheal intubation. Why will I do tracheostomy? Right? I will not do tracheostomy. So I want to do airway access for disorders mainly in the oropharynx or laryngopharynx, where I can't put a tube, where I can't do endotracheal intubation. That's where I'll do tracheostomy. Right? So answer should not be nasal disorders or nasopharyngeal disorders. It should be oral, oropharyngeal, and laryngeal disorders. That is mota mota what your indications are going to be. So congenital will be laryngeal stenosis, laryngeal web. Very good, Muskan. Excellent answer. See, difficult intubation is very broad terminology. Is that what you are going to say? Difficult intubation. Then it will go to many more cross questions, Aisha. वो अपने को नहीं चाहिए. We don't want to be counted. We want it to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because if it's difficult intubation, then there are alternates. A surgeon like me will say then do fiber optic intubation if it's difficult. Why are you doing tracheostomy? More morbid, right? Trauma. Which trauma may I would want to do tracheostomy? I would want to do if the person has oromaxillofacial fractures. If the mandible is fractured, maxilla is fractured, and I can't intubate, I do tracheostomy. Oromaxillofacial injury, laryngeal injury. Correct? Stab injury to the larynx. Of course, I can't intubate. So whenever you are thinking of indications, the first thing that should come to your mind is cannot put endotracheal tube. Can't put endotracheal tube. Those will be the indications first. Don't avoid giving overlapping indications. Inflammatory, again, inflammatory disorders of the larynx and oropharynx. Which what you guys were answering? Tracheobronchitis, epiglottitis. Of course, they should be accompanied by what do you say? They should be accompanied by airway distress. Not every epiglottitis will have airway distress. So if there is significant epiglottitis, then you will say, okay, he needs a tracheostomy. So tracheobronchitis, epiglottitis. Yeah, any other? When do you get laryngeal edema? Inflammatory laryngeal edema, apart from laryngitis, any other indication? Any surgical indication where you get laryngeal edema? Anybody? Ludwig, not so common. Thyroid, no, thyroid में नहीं होता laryngeal edema. Yeah, excellent, Manish. That's excellent answer. Burns or airway burns. Whenever I get airway burns, like I am trapped in a closed room and there are burns, like I'm trapped in my house and my house is on fire, I have inhalation injury. Okay, I will inhale the hot fumes. So I'll have airway burns. I'll have laryngeal edema. When you give these kind of indications versus the indications which are there in the books indications are all ridiculous. An examiner knows you know what you're talking about. Malignancy, again, maxillary surgeries, like if I have done a major maxillary surgery or mandibular surgery, mandibulectomy, commando operation, or I've done what's that called? Laryngectomy. If I have done laryngectomy, of course I have to do tracheostomy. Right? We can do intubation and all these, they are difficult. It's quite difficult. If there is an upper airway obstruction, you can't intubate, so you have to do tracheostomy. Then in miscellaneous, you can write the other things where I want to do long standing ventilatory support. This is the most common indication. Long standing ventilatory support means the patient is having issues in the lungs, like in today's day and age, COVID pneumonia, and he requires long standing ventilatory support. Like he's not able to breathe on his own, he's intubated, and he's intubated, but the endotracheal tube also has a life. You cannot keep the endotracheal tube forever, but I can keep tracheostomy for a long time. So if he requires long standing ventilatory support, like he has COVID related lung injury, please write answers like these, they make a lot more sense. Or yeah, respiratory muscle paralysis like polio or tetanus or Guillain-Barré syndrome. See, you know all medicine, you don't know common medicine. You are giving rare conditions. Guillain-Barré syndrome में बहुत rarely लगता है. So please write these last. These make more sense. Please write them first. But understand the structure, how you are going to build your answer. It becomes a lot easier if you follow this. Otherwise, your life will become hell, and only you can make your life easy or difficult. It's entirely up to you. Are there any contraindications? Foreign body, yeah, you can add in miscellaneous. Foreign body. Whatever else you want to add, you add in miscellaneous. But if you are asked or if you are writing, it should come like this: put, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Any contraindication? Infection, no. Why should you not do tracheostomy in infection? I'm doing na in epiglottitis, tracheobronchitis. I am doing. Of course not. Any contraindication? Yes, Prakriti, you want to answer that? You had asked me that question a few days back. When can I not do a tracheostomy, or when is tracheostomy contraindicated? Anatomical problems. So really speaking, there is no absolute contraindication. Please understand. This is a life-saving procedure. This is the ultimate access to airway. Okay, this is the ultimate access. If you can't do tracheostomy, patient will not live. So you do tracheostomy when it's life and death situation most of the times. So that is why there is nothing absolute. If you have to do it, you have to do it. But there are relative contraindications like anatomical issues. Like if the person has burns over neck, okay, he has burns over neck, or he has severe or gross midline shift, like tension pneumothorax, and the not midline, mediastinal shift, or tracheal deviation. But these are all relative. Okay, there is no absolute contraindication. If it has to be done, it has to be done. So these are your indications, contraindications. You say definition, types, indications, contraindications, where applicable. Then you talk about anesthesia and position. Yeah, anesthesia, position of tracheostomy. Supine, neck extended. Of course, he has to be supine. Neck should be extended to push the trachea in front. Okay, neck should be extended to push the trachea in front, not flexed. Anesthesia. So if you are doing an emergency, you may give local anesthesia, or if he is unconscious, you give no anesthesia if he is unconscious. Okay, and if it's elective, it will be as a part of some other procedure. Like if I'm doing elective tracheostomy, like let's say I'm doing laryngectomy and tracheostomy, then it will be done as a part of laryngectomy. So that will be in general anesthesia. Obviously, for no emergency procedure will you wait for airway. So either you do it without any anesthesia, or if possible, you will give local anesthesia depending on his consciousness. See, if he is conscious, you can't give no anesthesia. What will happen if he's conscious, he's in distress, and you start doing the tracheostomy? What will happen? So patient is having stridor and he is very uncomfortable. He has a foreign body that is stuck, and then you start cutting things. What will happen? Shock. कौन सी shock? ये कौन सी shock है भाई? He will cough. Why would he cough? He will do something much before that, Ishani. What will happen? If I start cutting the things, muscle spasm, go in spasm. Thank you. Vasovagal shock. Okay. Please don't start cutting in a conscious patient without anesthesia. It will take you 1 second. See, tracheostomy is a surgical procedure. So you have to give some anesthesia. If there is no time to even give local anesthesia, like you feel he's desaturated, then he would be unconscious, or then you do cricothyrotomy. उसमें कुछ नहीं होगा because that takes 2 seconds to do. You can do cricothyrotomy. Just put a needle through the skin, through the subcute, through the cricothyroid membrane. Just put a needle, the distress will go, and then plan the tracheostomy. Okay, absolutely clear. I have no doubt about these things. You will save or kill someone if you make a mistake in this. These are life-saving things. So, local anesthesia usually does the work. If he is already intubated, then it will be general anesthesia as a part of some other procedure. Now, which needle? Any broad gauge needle that you have access to. Broad gauge needle. So 18, 16, whichever you can. The bigger the better, of course. Now, next thing you are going to do is the procedure. What all things do you encounter when you do tracheostomy? Yeah. So I am talking about, there will be thyroid cartilage here, cricoid cartilage here, and now here I have my tracheal rings. I feel the tracheal rings, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here will be my suprasternal notch. So I have cleaned the area. If time permitted, I have given local anesthesia in this area. If time permitted, what incision do I take? How do I start the procedure? Yeah, what incision do I take? So there are two choices. If it's an emergency, I take vertical incision, midline, ऊपर से नीचे. Okay, from cricoid cartilage to sternal notch, take a nice big incision. And if it's elective, I will take a skin crease horizontal incision because it is cosmetic. ये सबको मालूम है. So let's say I took the vertical incision. What all layers will I encounter? I took the incision on the skin. What layers do I encounter? What is superficial layer? ये कौन सी layer है भाई? I cut the skin. Then what comes next? Subcute. What is subcute? Subcute के अंदर कुछ होती है? Platysma, cervical fascia. Okay, I will get platysma. Very good. Then I get superficial fascia. जो ज़्यादा नहीं होता यहाँ पर. I get some superficial fascia. Then what do I get? उसके बाद क्या आएगा? Skin, strap muscles, skin, platysma, superficial fascia, strap muscles. So there is a fascia on top of the strap muscles. What is that fascia? Every muscle has a fascia on top. Pretracheal. So I have deep fascia or pretracheal fascia. Pretracheal fascia has two layers. One layer is in front, one layer is behind. So I have the deep fascia. All of these I start cutting. Cut, keep cutting. Then I encounter the strap muscles. Okay, so I cut the skin, cut the subcute, started spreading everything, cut the fascia, deep fascia, I started spreading everything. Now what am I going to see next? Which strap muscles come in the way? So I'll see some strap muscles over here. Which are they? Which strap muscles come in the way? ENT exam में अगर strap muscle नहीं आया ना, TOS, omohyoid, सारे नहीं आते. Mackie, not all of them come. Which muscles come? Which doesn't? Okay, which muscle doesn't come? Chalo, you can answer that. You have four muscles as per TOS: thyro, hyoid, omohyoid. He's given those four names, na? Sternothyroid and sternohyoid. Stylohyoid करके strap muscle नहीं होती है. दोस्त, there is no stylo. Sternothyroid, sternohyoid. Yeah. Which strap muscles come, which don't come? Sternothyroid. See, understand, if the word sternum is written, okay, common sense, if the word sternum is written, that means it's going to start from here and go upper, sternum to thyroid, thyroid cartilage, sternum to hyoid bone यहाँ पे होती है ऊपर, यहाँ ऊपर, it's somewhere higher up in the neck. Of course, if the word sternum is there, then it has to come in your way of tracheostomy, isn't it? Common sense. So these two muscles come. Omohyoid is a deeper muscle which will come. Thyroid may not come. Thyroid is little higher up. It goes from thyroid cartilage to hyoid bone. Please use common sense. Life is only this difficult. So these muscles come in the way. I just separate them. Okay, I'm just going to lateralize them. How do I lateralize the strap muscles? You don't need to cut them. You just lateralize them. With cricoid hook, oh god, cricoid hook. A hook will never retract a muscle. Hook is just one. Yeah, you can use retractors like cat paw, or you can use right angle retractors, mastoid retractors, self-retaining retractors. You use retractors, okay, like a right angle retractor. So you retract the strap muscles laterally. Now what am I going to see? After I have retracted the strap muscle. Yeah, what do I see now? After I have retracted the strap muscles, isthmus. So now I will see the trachea. Okay, trachea and the rings, and I will see the thyroid gland over here. Okay, I see the thyroid gland over here. Now I have to see, is it coming in my way of second and third rings? If it is coming in the way, then I lift the isthmus up, only the isthmus. Okay, so I just lift the isthmus up. With what? With what do I lift the isthmus? Yes, How do I lift the isthmus of the clamps? No, this is a clamp. Which retractor? Which retractor? Yes, Palak Bhatia. Which retractor do I use to lift the isthmus? No, not L retractor. I mean, you can use any retractor, but there is one instrument meant for this purpose. Don't know. It's the answer that you gave earlier, cricoid hook. So cricoid hook is a misnomer. Cricoid hook is used to lift the isthmus of thyroid gland. Okay, to lift the isthmus of thyroid gland. But if it's not there, you can use any retractor to lift it as long as it's coming in the way. If required, you can divide the isthmus also. If it's coming in the way, you can divide it also. Now you will see the thyroid rings. So we may hata raha. Let's assume I have removed these things. Now I will see the thyroid rings, the tracheal rings. Coiter has gland has gone sideward. So I count thyroid cartilage, cricoid cartilage, first ring, second ring, third ring, fourth ring. So between the second and third ring is where I want to make the incision. What do I do before I make the incision? What do I do before making the incision? Ligno. Why ligno? 4% lignocaine to suppress cough. Anything before that? Okay, fix the trachea. Anything before that? Adrenaline. Adrenaline की जरूरत नहीं है. Lignocaine is okay. But anything before I inject the lignocaine? Anything? Aspirate. Excellent, excellent. So what I do is I take a syringe with needle. No, don't do any prayer. Prayer is after you are done with everything. Don't pray before. First finish, then pray. So I take a syringe with saline and lignocaine if required. See, that depends on the status of the patient. If he's intubated, I don't need to give lignocaine. So if there is an endotracheal tube already in place, I don't need to give it. If I'm doing an emergency and there is no tube inside, I'm doing direct, then I will give lignocaine, no doubt about it. So what I do is, the first thing I want to confirm, this is the trachea. So I take a syringe with needle, puncture the trachea and aspirate. So when I aspirate, I should get some air in the aspirate. Once I get air in the aspirate, I know I'm in the right place. Now I will infuse if required. If patient is not anesthetized, I will inject lignocaine in the wall. So that his cough reflex is suppressed, inject lignocaine. And then I make a tracheal opening. So how do I make this tracheal opening? How do I make this opening? Anybody? Any one of you has seen a tracheostomy? At least a video? No. Jaydev, come on. You're saying no. How do I make the opening in the trachea? So this is ring 1, 2, 3, 4. And I was reading the ENT books, usme nahi diya tha, which was surprising. There are a lot of ways of doing. Depends on the intention. The simplest thing I can do is I can make a linear opening. Linear incision on the trachea, vertical. But there are better ways of doing it. How I would do, yeah, that is another way of doing it. How I would do is, how we were taught, is you make a U-shaped opening or an inverted U like incision, like an inverted U between second and third arm. So you make an incision like this, inverted U. So you get a flap of the trachea. Okay, and the moment you make that inverted U incision and you raise the flap, you have the tracheostomy. If there is an endotracheal tube behind, you ask the anesthetist to withdraw the tube. Okay, and then you put your tracheostomy tube. Okay, so what you do is either you make a vertical incision, you dilate the incision. What do you dilate it with? If you make a vertical incision, you can just dilate it after making a vertical incision. That is one way of doing it, easy way. Make a vertical incision like this, put some instrument and dilate it. What is that? Not scissors, no, not scissors, not artery forceps. Cha instrument named है वहाँ आप use नहीं करते हो. There are named instruments to do these things. अरे ये क्या बात हुई? So either I make a vertical incision and I put some instrument and make the incision bigger. Thank you, it's called tracheal dilator. This is one way of doing it, and then I put the tracheostomy tube inside. The other way is how we used to do, is you make a U-shaped incision, inverted U. So you get a piece of the trachea, you bring it in front, and then you put the tracheostomy tube. So you put the tracheostomy tube inside, inflate the cuff, because first you always use the PVC tube, you inflate the cuff, fix the tube around the neck, so the tube has like a tape. So after you put it, you tie it to the back of the neck with a tape. And then you connect it, or you give oxygen or whatever ventilatory thing you are going to do through that. Okay, this is how the procedure is going to be performed. But first you normally put the PVC tube, don't put the metal tube. When we reverse this, then that part is viable. Yes, it is viable. The intent of making the flap is such that the tract forms fast and the tract remains patent for some time. Because sometimes now what happens, the tracheostomy tube comes out. If I have made the flap, it's very easy to put the tube back in. If I have not made the flap and the trachea collapses, patient will collapse. Right? So this is how you will perform, and then you put the tube and then you do whatever else you wanted to do with it. Any problem with the procedure? Easy description, life-saving. If you do it correctly, you should be able to do it. Okay, you should be able to do it. No issues about it. Then you talk about complications, if you know. So what are the complications? If you read the books, now they give all sorts of millions of complications. I will give you a pattern to remember. Hemorrhage. Why should there be hemorrhage? What is bleeding that you are causing hemorrhage? किस चीज का hemorrhage? Yeah. Injury to what? Pneumothorax is difficult. If I'm doing low tracheostomy, there can be pneumothorax, but that's difficult. Anything more important that can get injured? See, I'll give you a pattern. Artery, vein, nerve, and other structures. Okay, artery, vein, nerve, and other structures. Remember it like this. Which artery can get injured? Subclavian artery. Common carotid normally नहीं injure होगी. Which vein can get injured? Jugular veins. Anterior jugular veins do get injured. Which nerve will get injured in tracheostomy if you do it very badly? Normally injured नहीं होती है. Yeah, recurrent laryngeal nerve. Where does the nerve lie in context of trachea? Where does the nerve lie in context of trachea? I'm doing tracheostomy. Where is the nerve? Groove. Excellent, excellent. Tracheo-esophageal groove. Brilliant answer. So to injure this, you have to go through the trachea, go on the back side, on either side where the nerves will be there. If you see from the side, it looks like this. आगे होता है thyroid. Then here is the trachea. Here is the esophagus, smaller, collapsed, and somewhere here laterally, in the tracheo-esophageal grooves, posterior laterally, are your recurrent laryngeal nerves. So you have to go through and go laterally to injure these nerves, which should not happen. But yeah, in emergency, anything can happen. So artery, vein, nerve, and other structures like apex of lungs, and the most dangerous complication will be injury to the esophagus. The most dangerous one. This is the one I don't want. Late complication, there are only two that you need to remember. Books give millions. The most dangerous one, which will kill the patient, is what? What is the most dangerous complication which can kill the patient? Block. Yeah, excellent, excellent answer. Tube block. Who is this Mackie? Mackie, what's your name? Mackie is given a good answer. Tube block. Because understand, Mukesh, yeah, great going. The problem is the tracheostomy is done sometimes to drain the secretions. It gets dry. Okay, the secretions become dry because air is continuously going through the tube, and there can be incrustations which can cause blockage. So how do I avoid this? Yeah, the other is stenosis, subglottic stenosis, and injury to the esophagus will cause a very dangerous complication. What is that? How do you treat the incrustations? And what is the dangerous complication if esophagus gets injured? Thank you, Prakriti. Tracheoesophageal fistula. Good job. How do you prevent or treat the incrustations? Humidification, and if the incrustation has already happened, then you can inject some mucolytics. You can inject some mucolytics, like you can put N-acetylcysteine, or we used to put soda bicarb. Ringer lactate is just put, not if the incrustations are formed, then it will not. This will only help to reduce the incrustations, like humidification, saline suction. They only work initially, like before the crusts are formed. Once they are formed, then you need something to break it. These will break it. So when they tell you care of a tracheostomy, you will say frequent suctioning, humidification, and if incrustations are formed, break with mucolytics. These are mucolytics. They break the mucus plugs. Mucolytics. Okay. Last two things they can ask you: any new technique of tracheostomy, any new technique of tracheostomy, and tracheostomy reversal. ये दो चीज पूछेंगे. If you are doing very well, only then they will ask you. Otherwise, they'll be like, हाँ इतना आता है, बहुत हो गया. New technique, anybody, of tracheostomy? How is it done? Very good, Varun. Varun has come well prepared, as if he knew what I was going to take. Percutaneous tracheostomy. I have never seen it. I've never seen it. Forget doing it. Percutaneous tracheostomy. You don't need to know how it is done. I'll just tell you briefly how it is done. So let's say these are my tracheal rings. So what I do here is, when I'm going to do the tracheostomy, first I put a needle into the trachea. Okay, briefly I will tell you, don't need to know it too much in detail. I have never seen it. Through the needle, you will put a wire. Okay, a guide wire. Then you remove the needle. Then what you do is, on top of this guide wire, you are going to pass dilators. You know what a dilator is? Something that will dilate the tract. You keep passing dilators. First you put, say, 2 millimeter dilator, then 3 millimeter dilator, 4 millimeter dilator. You keep dilating this tract from the skin all the way till the trachea. And once the tract is dilated enough, then you put the tube after removing the dilator. Finally, you put the tube. Okay? नहीं समझा तो जाने दो, ये नहीं पूछेंगे, सिर्फ नाम बता दिया काफी है. How do you reverse tracheostomy? Means I put the tracheostomy for whatever of those indications. Now my patient is fine. So the patient says they can't speak when they have tracheostomy. So patient is doing, when are you going to remove this? How are you going to remove it? What are you going to do? What are the steps of tracheostomy reversal or tracheostomy removal? 1, 2, 3. Yes. Check. Check what? What are you going to check? The cause is managed. Of course, the cause is managed. Temporary tracheostomy, cause is managed. Inflammation is gone. Foreign body is removed. Whatever. Mandible is healed. Fractures are healed. Decannulation means what? What does that mean? Decannulation. Ishani, I will give you a comparison. Remember T-tube? It's something like that. Something like T-tube. Great R-mount protocol. I also don't know. So what you do is, if it's an adult who is awake, conscious, cooperative, then you block the tube, the opening. Don't remove it, just block it. Yeah. Block the tube and observe. Is the patient fine? Is he able to breathe? If he is not fine, if there is some distress, maybe you can make some perforations in your block. Like we put a piece of sterile paper or sterile gauze, make some holes in it so that the person is having some breathing through the tracheostomy and some normal. But more or less block it and observe. Is he having any distress? If he is fine, for 24 hours. This is like T-tube. You block the T-tube for 24 hours, something like that. If he's fine, he's able to breathe on his own, then you remove the T-tube. Remove the tracheostomy tube. Here the T-tube is tracheostomy tube, but you don't close the opening. Okay, just dress the opening, give it a dressing, and then observe. If he is fine, very good. If he now becomes breathless, what will you do? Here though I had the tube, so if he was breathless, I would just remove the dressing and let him breathe through it again. But now I have removed the tube and he is breathless. Now what do I do? Remove dressing and then what? Not re-intubate, you try to put the tube through the same pathway again. And now if the tract is well formed, the tube will go in comfortably. You don't have to do a tracheostomy again. That's why make that flap. Because if the flap is there now, putting the tube again becomes very easy. Okay. So now you try to put the tube again. Normally it will go. If he is fine and there is a dressing and he's breathing fine, then either you let the tracheostomy heal on its own or you can suture the opening if you want. Suture the skin. That's it. End of the story. Okay, so the message is first block the tube, observe, remove the tube, put the dressing, observe, everything is fine, close the wound or let the wound heal on its own. Secondary intention. Either ways it works. Fine. Any problem with tracheostomy? Absolutely clear? Okay, let's see if anybody can answer this easy question. So we did tracheostomy, we'll do tonsillectomy, and then if time permits, we'll do endoscopy also, if time permits. Which of these is an absolute indication for tonsillectomy? Let's see. Interesting. These kind of questions now, if you are able to answer, it tells me how correct your approach has been to these kind of topics. And these questions are not there in the books. Okay, means it's not there in DIGRA. ऐसा नहीं दिया DIGRA में, कुछ अलग ही दिया, फलता ही कुछ दिया. In the indications, you need to understand the indications for any surgical procedure. Please understand, surgery is the last resort for most diseases. Whatever can be treated medically should be treated medically. In PVD, we started with medical management. Then we went to, if required, angioplasty and all those bypasses. Correct? Similarly, where possible, how many of us have had a tonsillectomy? I think out of the 50 of us, maybe 2-3 of us must have had. That's 4-5% of us. Means 95% of us had our tonsils. Kabhi to infect hua hoga in our youth, but not everybody had a tonsillectomy. Most of us didn't have. So in which of these scenarios is tonsillectomy a must? The answer, there are only two absolute indications. Only two. The answer is OSA or obstructive sleep apnea. Anybody knows the other indication? Absolute indication for tonsillectomy. I'll give you a clue. It is unilateral tonsillectomy. Because in all, normally you do tonsillectomy bilaterally. Na? This is an indication for unilateral tonsillectomy. Lymphoma. Not lymphoma. At least I don't know. Lymphoma में tonsillectomy करते हैं क्या? At least I don't know about it. Yeah, very good. Adenocarcinoma of tonsil or epidermoid carcinoma of tonsil. So carcinoma of the tonsil is an indication for tonsillectomy, but of course this is very rare. Tonsil में cancer होते नहीं हैं. All of these are indications, mind you. So what is tonsillectomy? It is surgical removal of tonsils. So I'm just telling you the same pattern that you are going to follow as you did for tracheostomy, and you're going to follow it for all the procedures in head and neck, mastoidectomy, submucous resection, DNS, all sare septoplasty. You follow the same pattern. Definition, indications, contraindications if any, position, anesthesia, steps, complications. This is your standard pattern. And think of common things. So what are the absolute indications for tonsillectomy? There are only two. One is tonsils causing sleep apnea, where sleep apnea is because of tonsils, not because of any other reason. Means the person should have tonsils causing sleep apnea. sleep apnea due to tonsils or enlarged tonsils, and other is CA tonsils. But these are rare indications. Of course, the commoner indications are different. Yeah, anybody? What are the common indications for tonsillectomy? One is chronic tonsillitis. One is recurrent tonsillitis. What's the difference? What is chronic? What is recurrent? Yes, why is Akar Prabhu not saying anything? Akar Prabhu has not watched videos of the person he is very loyal to. Yeah. Anybody? Chronic more than 3 months. Excellent, Varun. Chronic is if I have tonsillitis persisting for more than 12 weeks. That is chronic. Recurrent means he keeps getting again and again. I'll tell you how to remember. It is 7, 5, 3, 3, 2, 1. 7 attacks, 1 year. 5 attacks, 2 consecutive years. 3 attacks, 3 consecutive years. 7, 5, 3, 1, 2, 3. Those many attacks he keeps getting over this period of time. That is recurrent. And the third one is any complication of tonsillitis. Okay, any complication of tonsillitis like quinsy. What is quinsy? What is quinsy? Yeah, what is quinsy? Peritonsillar abscess. Very good. Any other complication associated with tonsillitis which requires surgical excision? Any other? Otitis media. Very good. Febrile seizures not so common. Okay, more head and neck related. Otitis media, more head and neck related. Can the infection from tonsil spread somewhere in the vicinity? Anatomy में बहुत problem है life में. I can see. So if I look from inside, this is the pharynx, pharyngeal mucosa. Then I have the tonsils over here. Okay, with the crypts. Then there is a layer over here. What is this layer? Around the tonsils in the pharynx. There is a layer over here. What is that layer? Yeah, buccopharyngeal fascia. No, not buccopharyngeal. Sorry, wrong answer. Wrong answer. It's not buccopharyngeal. The first layer is not buccopharyngeal. Yeah, it is the capsule of tonsil. What is it made up of? Capsule of tonsil is derived from what? It's pharyngobasilar fascia. Very good, Palak. उसके पीछे there is a muscle. What muscle is that? कौन सी muscle है यहाँ पर? Behind the tonsil. Yeah, excellent. Superior constrictor. Very good. See, I'm happy you guys are having at least this orientation of the things that are there. And uske piche there is one more layer behind the superior constrictor. What is this layer? There is a layer, another capsule. That is your buccopharyngeal fascia. So first it is PB, pharyngobasilar. The outer layer is the buccopharyngeal fascia. Outside of this fascia, there is a space. What is that space? Parapharyngeal space. So you get a parapharyngeal abscess. So inflamed tonsils can go through these layers quite easily and reach the parapharyngeal space and give you a parapharyngeal space abscess. If the inflamed tonsils causes an abscess within the capsule, that is quinsy or peritonsillar abscess. Okay. So any of these indications, you will do tonsillectomy. Is there any non-tonsil indication for tonsillectomy, or normal tonsil is going to be removed? Non-tonsillar indication for tonsillectomy, where tonsil is absolutely normal, still you are going to remove it. Anybody? RHD? No, you're not going to remove it. It's not RHD. It is not RHD. It is rheumatic fever. Rheumatic heart disease is much after rheumatic fever. Eagle syndrome. Can you tell simply something simple? ओके, ग्लोसोफेरेंजियल न्यूरेक्टमी आज के जमाने में नहीं करते हैं ग्लोसोफेरेंजियल न्यूरेक्टमी। डिप्थीरिया कैरियर आज के जमाने में नहीं होते डिप्थीरिया कैरियर, एवरीबॉडी हैज द वैक्सीन। या सो वन इज स्टाइलॉइड पेन और स्टाइल्जिया with someone called Eagle syndrome. So here, if I want to remove the styloid process, I go intraorally. And of course, for palatal surgeries like palatopharyngoplasty. Where do you do this? Palatopharyngoplasty. It's done for what? For what? Yeah, excellent. For sleep apnea. Or for people who have a very low palate. If the palate is very low and it gets obstructed, then you get sleep apnea. In as a part of fixing the palate, you also do this tonsillectomy. So in dono mein you do tonsillectomy, then you go aage and then you remove the styloid process or you do the palatopharyngoplasty. These are non-tonsillar indications. Now you come to anesthesia and position. Yeah, what's the anesthesia and position? ये सब तो easy है, ये सब part we can go through quickly. What is this position? Anesthesia, of course, is going to be GA, general anesthesia. Don't say local anesthesia. This is called Rose's position. What is Rose's position? How do you describe Rose position? क्या होता है Rose position में? What is the difference between Rose and barking dog? Okay, supine head extended. See, Rose position means neck should be extended and atlanto-occipital joint should be extended. So in Rose, there should be double extension. Extension plus extension. What is extended? Neck is extended and atlanto-occipital joint is extended. Double extension. This position is used more or less for all intraoral surgeries. More or less. So if there is any intraoral procedure you are describing, tonsillectomy, adenoidectomy, oral biopsies under anesthesia, more or less, it will be done in this position. Okay, why? What is the advantage of this position? Why should the head be like this, falling back? Excellent. Reduces the risk of aspiration. Reduces risk of aspiration because your larynx will be here. Okay, and whatever you will do will go back by gravity. So it reduces the risk of aspiration. Fine. So you do the anesthesia, you give this position. Please understand, to identify Rose's position, this is what identifies. What is this? What tells you it's Rose position? There should be a neck pillow or a pillow under the shoulders. That is the hallmark. A pillow or a towel. That tells you it's going to be a Rose position. Most of the time. And nothing underneath the head. So you give the Rose's position in the patient who is indicated. Now you're going to start the steps. So the first thing that you do, you want to open the mouth, you put this device. After intubation, you put this device. I'm sure you know what this device is. What is this device? Yeah, so first you put the Boyle Davis mouth gag with tongue guard. Boyle Davis mouth gag or mouth retractor with tongue guard. So the tongue gets pushed up and the mouth is open and you can see the teeth in between. Okay, so this is the mouth gag, this is the tongue guard. It's going to push the tongue up. And then you look inside. Before I start doing the tonsillectomy, what do I do first? After I put the mouth gag and before I start the tonsillectomy, what do? I do some step. Not important to say, but it's good to know. नहीं intubate सब कर दिया ना anesthesia में. पहले anesthesia दिया, फिर mouth guard डाला ना. So before I start cutting the tonsil, I do some step. Not important, but if you say it, it's good. Traffin's tripod, that's a part of the mouth gag. Yeah, Arshia, excellent answer. You pack the throat, put a throat pack. Okay, put a throat pack. Means you put some mop or some gauzes. It's a throat pack, it's a special thing. It's like gauze pieces, but it's a single pack. It's like a long tape and you place it at the oropharynx. So that if there is any bleeding, the pack will suck it. This throat pack is placed in almost all oral surgeries. Huh? So I'm just giving you tips on if they change the principle, change the surgery, the steps will remain more or less the same. Only the critical steps will change between tongue excision or glossectomy and tonsillectomy and adenoidectomy. Basic steps are the same for oral surgeries or oropharyngeal surgeries. So you can't say they asked me palatopharyngeoplasty, I had never even heard about it. You start like this, no. You start like this. Name of the procedure, indication, contraindication, anesthesia, position, put the pack. If you reach till here, na, they are not going to ask you what is palatopharyngeoplasty. Trust me. They will not ask. They'll be more than happy. Yes, perfect. Because you answer these kind of things which you don't know unless you have seen. But obviously you have not seen. So that ship has sailed. But at least now you know. So you pack the throat and now you decide that you're going to remove the tonsil with whatever instruments you have. And there are two, three techniques. One is the cold technique, which is आज के ज़माने में not done. What is that called? Where you don't use any energy. What is that technique called? आज के ज़माने में नहीं करना वो dissection and snare. Dissection and snare technique, in which you use normal surgical instruments. You hold the tonsil, pull it medially. Okay, hold it, pull it medially as you see over here. So this is the tongue at the top. This is your tonsil. This is the medial part of the tonsil, or the lateral part or the lateral pharyngeal wall. You pull it medially, pull it towards the midline, and then you start cutting. Cut all around, and you cut till you reach the stalk. The tonsils are like this. They have like a stalk, sort of, from where all the blood vessels are coming. You know, there are 4 or 5 vessels: facial artery, tonsillar artery, ascending pharyngeal artery, a lot of arteries. They come through the stalk like this. So what you do is first you dissect the tonsil all around, cut, like it's done over here, till you reach the stalk. And once you reach the stalk, you put the wire of the snare. It's like a loop. ऐसे एक loop होता है. You put the loop all around over here, so that it goes till here, till the stalk. So you put the wire of the loop. What is that called? Put the wire over here, the loop of the wire, encircle the stalk. Yeah, what is it called? That loop or that wire or that snare? Yeah, Eve's tonsillar snare. So you put the snare and you fire it. The stump gets ligated and the tonsil gets amputated, and then you remove the tonsil. You just pass the wire, tie it or tighten it so it gets snared and it gets locked at the stalk. The stalk gets tied with the help of the snare. This is the old conventional way. Now what you are going to answer, what is going to be done commonly, what you see in this picture, what technique is this? This is what you need to answer, because I believe in most hospitals they would be doing this. Hot techniques. Okay, so there are two. One, the easy one is electrocautery. This is the easy one, available everywhere. Whatever surgery surgeons do, normally we use electrocautery, monopolar cautery. It looks just like this. It's a monopolar cautery. So monopolar cautery works on electricity. The electricity comes to the tip. When I touch the body, the electric current faces the resistance of the body, and wherever I touch, it generates heat. Heat, and heat causes coagulation. So electrocautery is electrical energy to heat, and the heat causes coagulation. But there is a smarter way of doing it, because electrocautery cannot cauterize everything. It's very hot. There can be burns. So what is used, what you see in the picture, is not laser. It's called coablation technique. Coablation technique. This is a coablation device. Anybody knows how this works? ये मैंने जनरल सर्जरी में नहीं देखा है. This I have only heard as a part of tonsillectomy and head and neck surgeries. When we do general surgery, we don't use this coablation device. I myself didn't know about it. It's not laser. What is this coablation? It stands for Coagulation plus ablation. Yeah, excellent. Coagulation plus ablation. You don't need to know the literal meanings. So what is this coablation device? I'll tell you briefly. Details zarurat nahi hai. Briefly, I will tell you how it works. This device, if you look at the tip, there is one opening here. From one opening, they spray saline. Saline is sprayed. From the other opening, the saline is aspirated. So there is irrigation, aspiration, and on the other sides, there are radio frequency waves which are emitted. So what happens is when the saline is coming out from here, it comes over here, the saline molecule NaCl, and the radio frequency breaks it into sodium plus, chloride minus. Wow, Palak has given the answer. Mere bina bole. This sodium chloride ions, whatever comes in the way, whatever tissue comes in the way, it breaks the tissue. Bas, breaks the molecules. That's all you need to know. So as I'm firing it, एक बाजू से saline निकल रही है. It is facing the radio frequency waves. It is splitting, and that sodium chloride is breaking the tissue. It's not only ablating the tissue; it's also coagulating. So there is no bleeding. So it is breaking the tissue, coagulating the cells, and it is helping me dissect. And then whatever rest is there, it is being reabsorbed. So there is no wastage. I mean, there is no spillage. He will not aspirate. This device is only going to push also the saline out and aspirate the saline back. But the principle, radio frequency induced ionization of sodium chloride. Bas. That's why it's called coablation. Personally, I've never seen it in general surgery. So whatever surgeries we do, we don't use this energy source. But it's something new. It's being used, so you should know about it. You answer this, nothing like it. Okay, nothing like it. Fine. So you do that. You check the hemostasis in the tonsillar fossa, and then you remove the throat pack. You remove the mouth guards, and then that's the end of the story. If required, you keep a throat pack for some time. If required, normally not required. But this is more or less how it is done. If they ask you adenoidectomy, only this part will change. Baki sab same hai. Only this part will change. You use that adenoidectomy forceps and you shave the adenoids. However that is done. Last part is complications. Let me see if any of you can answer this. So you did definition, indication, contraindication. Really speaking, होते नहीं है tonsillitis के. Those are general surgical contraindications. Position, anesthesia, technique, and complications. So which of these complications may occur post tonsillectomy due to injury to posterior pillar? Posterior pillar injury will cause which of these complications? So you need to know what is posterior pillar. Normally नहीं होता है. Normally posterior pillar injury नहीं होता. होना तो नहीं चाहिए unless you do a very bad job. Many have gotten it wrong. 26%, 24% strike rate. Only 24% means actually only 1 in 4. Most of you said this parapharyngeal abscess. I don't know why. Just because earlier on I tricked you about parapharyngeal abscess happening. Yeah, it's a complication of tonsillitis, where the pus from the tonsil goes into the parapharyngeal space. It's not got nothing to do with posterior pillar and tonsillectomy. Anyways, what forms the posterior pillar of the tonsil? If I see from the side, okay, this is the nose, this is the nasal cavity, this is the tongue, this is the oral cavity, okay, this is the floor of the mouth, and this is the nasopharynx, this is the palate over here. Okay, ऐसे होती है palate, hard palate, soft palate. Tonsils are somewhere over here. Tonsil has two pillars. There is an anterior pillar and a posterior pillar. I'm talking about palatine tonsils. They are at the palate. So the anterior pillar is formed by what? Posterior pillar is formed by what? Mackey is saying palatoglossus. See, the part which is facing the tongue will obviously be palatoglossus. Glosso stands for tongue. So it will be palatoglossus because it is facing the tongue. The part which is facing the posterior pharyngeal wall, of course, is going to be palatopharyngeus. This is how you should remember anatomy. Yeah? Don't mug it. You mug it, your life will get over, but you will not stop mugging. Understand the fundamentals of anatomy. So there is a palatoglossus, there is a palatopharyngeus. I told you, palatoglossus injure hota nahi hai, hua to koi badi baat nahi hai. If this muscle gets injured, what will happen? What is the function of palatopharyngeus? Palate, pharynx, what's the role? This palatopharyngeus has some fibers which go over here. At the junction of the nasopharynx, so the nasopharynx is over here, oropharynx is over here, and there are these fibers over here of palatopharyngeus, which they go up every time he swallows. Yeah, Arshia, great answer. This is called passavant ridge. It's called passavant ridge. So passavant ridge is something that gets elevated, goes posterior every time he swallows because of contraction of palatopharyngeus. So when this muscle contracts, the ridge goes and it closes the nasopharynx from the oropharynx. That is why whatever he eats goes down and nothing goes up. So if the palatopharyngeus is injured, what will happen? Nasal regurgitation. All of these can be potential complications of tonsillectomy, but nasal regurgitation should not happen. If it has happened, that means the ridge is damaged. Ridge is damaged means palatopharyngeus is damaged, which is the posterior pillar of the tonsil. Normally नहीं होता, होना नहीं चाहिए. अगर हुआ तो उसका रीजन ये है और ये प्रॉब्लम आएगी. Patient will have nasal regurgitation. He'll say, when I eat something, especially which is liquid, it comes into my nose and I have to cough or sneeze it out. Nasal regurgitation. So what are the complications? Just like you had complications of tracheostomy, early and late. Early means injury, and you can have late complications where there is injury to other structures. Here what will get injured? Okay, arteries will get injured, you will get hemorrhage. Favorite topic, favorite answer, hemorrhage. Primary reactionary hemorrhage. Veins can get injured, you can have venous hemorrhage. Veins under tonsillar fossa. There can be injury to the muscles in the vicinity. I told you what all that will cause. Nasal regurgitation. Okay, carotid normally injure neonates, but again they'll all cause the same problem. Late complication क्या है tonsillectomy के? Important. Late complication. What is the complication? Infection. Okay, infection. काम का नहीं है. याद क्या रखोगे? What happens if I remove bilateral tonsils and adenoids at the same time? दोनों टॉन्सिल और एडेनॉइड निकाल दिए तो क्या होगा? Because people who have hypertrophy of tonsils also have hypertrophy of adenoids, and that causes sleep apnea. Rhinolalia clausa, no, not Rhinolalia clausa. Far-fetched. उससे क्या फर्क पड़ता है? Something more dangerous will happen if I remove both. Yeah, any other late complication? You're all saying the same thing. Hypertrophy of lingual tonsil doesn't make a big difference. Doesn't make a big difference. Any other complication that you know? And what happens if I remove lung complication? Okay, lung abscess हो सकती है because of aspiration. You can get lung abscess. Scarring, so what? Frequent infection नहीं होती है. Doesn't happen. Any other complication? Come on, quickly. Too much time. Any other answer? Yeah. Too much time. remnant, velopharyngeal insufficiency नहीं होती. I just want to know इसका answer. If I remove the tonsils and adenoids in someone who has OSA, what will happen? Okay, I'll give you food for thought. I will not give the answer today. You think about it. I'll give you the answer. It's called Pope syndrome. Okay, it's called Pope syndrome. I won't give you the answer today. Just think about it. Yeah. इसका आंसर है, you can get injury to eustachian tube, so you can get otitis media, hearing problems, all those. Okay, and you can get abscesses and other structures which get injured. But think about this one. If I remove both the tonsils, cold blue pulmonary edema on the right track. But what's happening over here? You think about it. Okay, now quickly, last few things that I'm left, then we'll be done. Another 10 minutes maybe, hopefully. What is the incorrect statement about this device? Yeah, what is the incorrect statement about this device? Let's see how many of you can answer this. Yeah, waiting, quickly. Okay, only 20% gave the correct answer. What device is this? See, if you can't make out the device, you can see the options and that will give you an idea. So this is an upper GI endoscope. Upper GI endoscope, also called gastroscope or esophagogastroduodenoscope. Now this device is the flexible one. Okay, it's a flexible device. How does this go? This part goes through the mouth, not nasogastric. Why can I not use it nasogastric? Why do I have to put it orally? Why oral, not nasogastric? Even though it is flexible? Yeah, why can I not put it like how I put nasogastric tube? Why can't I put it from the mouth? I mean, why can't I put it this also from the nose? Why does this have to go through the mouth? Easy. It's not easy. In fact, it's more difficult. It's easier from the nose if I could. Length, it has to go till D2. So it will go. There is enough length. More than enough length. Understand, this is a very broad instrument. It has a very broad diameter. Okay, almost 1 to 1.5 centimeters. You can't put it from the nose. It's a very broad instrument or a very thickly diameterized instrument. Diameter is too much, so it will not go through the nose. This will only go through the mouth. Now I'm talking about upper GI endoscopy. It is a procedure to visualize esophagus, stomach, and proximal duodenum, means up to second part of duodenum, with an endoscope. So when you say bronchoscopy, it will be the same procedure to visualize tracheobronchial tree with the help of an endoscope. Similarly, upper GI endoscopy or esophagoscopy or esophagogastroduodenoscopy, it's a procedure to visualize esophagus, stomach, duodenum with an endoscope. What is an endoscope? This is an endoscope. Okay, what are the types? There are two types. One is flexible, which is used commonly, and in older days they had a rigid endoscope. आजकल gastroenterologist तो नहीं use करते. I have never used a rigid endoscope. I have done many endoscopies, all with a flexible endoscope. What are the indications? Now this you cannot do congenital and acquired. This you will do as diagnostic indications and therapeutic indications. Okay, even when you do bronchoscopy, it will be done the same way. Diagnostic indications. So you just think of disorders in the esophagus, stomach, and duodenum, and you just start writing them, like GERD, peptic ulcer disease, C esophagus, C stomach, esophageal varices, whatever you know, you can write over here for diagnosis. For therapy, you are going to use it for treatment of variceal bleed. Okay, treatment of variceal bleed. You'll use it for dilation of strictures. So So if there is an esophageal stricture, peptic stricture, you can use it to dilate. Biopsy you will put over here. CS stomach के साथ ही आएगा biopsy. Even for bronchoscopy, you will follow the same pattern: diagnostic indications and therapeutic indications. Okay, so indications, then contraindication, really speaking, there is no real contraindication. The only contraindication is if the person has disorders of cervical spine. But this is the only contraindication. This is also relative. If he has disorders of cervical spine, in what anesthesia do I do this? LA. Any other? So this can be done in local anesthesia. You just spray the anesthetic in the throat, or it can be done in sedation, or it can also be done in general anesthesia, depending on the indication. If I have to only diagnose, I can do in local anesthesia. If I have to do some intervention like dilation or banding, better to do it in general anesthesia. Better. What is the position? What is the position? And this is wrongly given in ENT books. Huh? ENT books give the wrong answer over here. Yeah, it is done in left lateral position. Left lateral position with the neck. What should be the position of the neck? Left lateral, and what is the position of the neck? Why flex? Why flex? Why flex? Yes, Palak Bhatia, you can answer it. You gave the answer earlier. Why should the neck be flexed? To get in a way means get in what way? See, I give you the funda. If I want the larynx to come in front, I want the neck to be extended. That pushes the larynx superiorly and anteriorly. It becomes easy to go inside. If I want to go into the esophagus, I want the neck to be flexed, because when the neck is flexed, the esophagus goes on top. See, esophagus is piche. When the neck will flex, esophagus will go upper. So it will come more into the oropharynx. The alignment will be better. When you are going to put nasogastric tubes at some stage in your life, please remember, don't extend the neck. Your tube will always go in the trachea. So the neck should be flexed. To do esophageal intubation, neck should be flexed. To do tracheal intubation, neck should be extended, because that will bring the trachea in front or the larynx in front. Just these fundas have to be remembered. That's it, nothing else. No mugging. Okay, what is given in the book? You know, the book says this is done in barking dog position. It's not done in barking dog position. Barking dog knee, this is the position. Lateral position, left lateral is preferred, neck flexed. Bus. Neck should be flexed is the important part. Then the alignment comes. Now, what is the technique? When I'm doing an upper GI endoscopy, the first thing that I do is I don't put a Boyle-Davis mouth guard. I just put a disposable mouth guard. Okay, I just put a disposable mouth guard. Means I put something which will keep the mouth open and the teeth protected. The reason for this is the mouth will remain open, and this will prevent the patient from biting the tube. Because see, Varun said you are doing it in local anesthesia. I'm putting a tube like this in his mouth. This is going through his mouth. If he chokes, if he gets irritated, and if he bites the tube, you know what will happen to this tube? If he bites it, what will happen to the tube? Anybody? It will be a disaster, not for the patient, for the surgeon. All these endoscopes, all of them, which are flexible, what is the component of an endoscope? So every endoscope, like this, it has a camera to see. It has something which will throw the light. Okay, and it has some side ports for passing the instruments. This is the workup of all endoscopes: gastroscope, bronchoscope, cystoscope. सारे scope का principle ही है. There is a camera. There is something that will emit the light because it's going to go inside the body. It needs an illumination, and there are some side channels for passing the instruments, for suctioning, for irrigating. ये जो camera होती है ना, the camera has a cable. okay, which is made up of fibers. So these endoscopes are also called fiber optic endoscopes because they have fibers. If the person bites the endoscope, this flexible endoscope, and if the fiber gets damaged, the camera gets damaged. It's like the camera of your phone getting damaged. End of the story. The scope is useless, and a scope like this will cost in lakhs of rupees. So more than anything else, he has to be putting the bite. It's called a bite block. The correct name is bite block. It's not really a mouth guard, it's a bite block, so he doesn't bite it. So you put the mouth guard, he will cooperate if you are doing it in local anesthesia. You pass the endoscope from the mouth. Go from the mouth, neck in flex position, go in the pharynx. And what do you see when you go in the pharynx? I'll show you this picture. I have it a little aage. So I reach this stage. This is in the pharynx. Okay, and I'm looking down. This is the tongue. Okay, somewhere here will be the epiglottis covering the larynx, and इसके पीछे will be the esophagus. Now my endoscope has gone over here, has reached over here, and it is seeing over here. It will see what? It will see the epiglottis. It will see the laryngeal opening, and behind the laryngeal opening will be the esophageal opening or the cricopharynx. समझ में आ गया orientation? So when I go inside, it looks like this. This is the epiglottis right at the top. This is my larynx or the vocal cords, and somewhere at the back over here, which I can't see, will be my esophagus or cricopharynx. So what I do, if I am doing upper GI endoscopy, I take my endoscope in one of these areas, and then I keep going anteriorly or inferiorly. So I take my endoscope tip behind the larynx in this space at the back, hypopharynx, and then I go inferiorly. So when I go inferiorly, I enter the esophagus. This is how the esophagus looks from inside. So enter the pharynx, see the epiglottis, see the vocal cords, go posterior to the larynx and enter the esophagus. Then you continue, keep going aage, aage, aage. What is this? What do you see in this image? Anybody? Any idea? इसमें क्या दिख रहा है? LES, parrot, GAJ. So what you see here, please be very clear. The light area that you see, this is esophageal mucosa. What is the esophageal mucosa made up of? It is squamous epithelium. No, not columnar. This is squamous epithelium. This, what do you see? This is gastric mucosa, which is your columnar epithelium, intestinal epithelium. And this border that you see, this is my gastroesophageal junction, where the esophagus will end and the stomach will begin. So I go aage. Then I go inside, I see the stomach, then I go up to the second part of duodenum, I see whatever I have to do, take whatever biopsies I have to take and bring the tube out. End of the story. Easy, not too difficult. This procedure does not really have any complications. The risk of aspiration is minimal. Risk of injury is minimal. Okay, there may be some mucosal injury to the pharynx. That's it. So some mucosal bleed. Aspiration risk very minimal if the patient is cooperative or you do it under anesthesia. Perforation is the only thing that is dangerous. Where does the perforation happen? Posterior. Where posterior? What are the sites of perforation? Esophagus. Esophagus पे होगा perforate और कहाँ होगा और कुछ है नहीं post perforate होने को. So it can perforate at the cricopharynx, or it can perforate about 25 centimeters from incisors, or it can perforate at 40 centimeters from incisors. What are all these areas? What is common to these three areas? Cricopharynx, where the esophagus starts, 25 centimeters and 40 centimeters from the AA. No, AA is only over here. And it's not AA, it is TA, thoracic aorta. So these are the natural constrictions of the esophagus, sites of natural constrictions, where the esophagus is naturally narrow at the cricopharynx at the start, then somewhere lower down it again becomes narrow because of the left bronchus, and somewhere lower down it again becomes narrowed because of the diaphragm. So these are the three narrowing sites in the esophagus where the risk of perforation is maximum with the help of the endoscope. Okay, इतने complication चाहिए. So I gave you steps, every procedure same way, visualize, types, indication, diagnostic, therapeutic, contraindication, no real contraindication, anesthesia, technique, easy technique, you can also do it now, and some complications that you need to know. Okay, bronchoscopy will go the same way. It is a visualization of tracheobronchial tree with an endoscope. Now for this I'll be a little fast. It's going to go the same way. Types are going to be same. Rigid. This one is rigid. See, rigid means it's going to be straight. It's not going to bend. Other is flexible. Right? Rigid or flexible. Indications are going to be same. Diagnostic, therapeutic. In diagnostic, causes like hemoptysis, or for biopsy, or for secretions like aspirate. If I want to do a culture, like the person is having bronchitis and I want to do a culture of the secretions, culture sensitivity. Therapeutic will be foreign body. Therapeutic will be dilation. Therapeutic will be control of hemorrhage, if any. Same, just like you had esophagoscopy, same way bronchoscopy. Contraindication, there are no real contraindications. अगर करना है तो करना है, there is no option. इसमें the position is going to be neck extended. From where do I put the endoscope? From the nose or from the mouth? From the nose or from the mouth? And what is the anesthesia that is required? Yeah, nose. Are you sure? Are you sure? Rigid. And see how they have put this one. I am not saying anything. You are only saying. You only see how they have put in this picture. So don't say, sir, nose se dalte hain. Okay. Lol. Yes, lol. Our life is having too much of lol. Yeah. That is a better answer. So if I'm doing rigid endoscopy, so there are two types. If I'm doing rigid is a very major procedure. This requires anesthesia, preferably general anesthesia, and this is going to be put from the mouth because it's a very big tube. Okay, rigid bronchoscope is a very big tube. You cannot put it. How will it go through the curvature of your nose and nasopharynx? Come on, it cannot be bent. Flexible can be done in local anesthesia and can be put from either from the mouth or nose, because flexible endoscope for bronchoscopy is very fine. You can put it from the nose. Don't have to put it from the mouth. Flexible can be either. Rigid always from the mouth. Extended position so that it gets aligned and you can do the endoscopy. Rest of the things are same. How do you know you are in the trachea? What do you see in this? How is this different from the esophagus? You saw esophagus. Okay, what about this? So you see these concentric rings. This means you are in the trachea. And of course, this is the carina where it bifurcates. Because many times this visualization is not possible. Okay, it's not possible, and accidentally I may go into the bronchus when I'm doing esophagoscopy. So if I go into the bronchus, I will see these rings. I know I'm in the wrong place. Patient will start coughing. Okay, he will feel apneic. So when I'm doing an esophagoscopy, I have to go behind and I have to see the esophagus as I showed you. See how it looks roomy, no concentric rings. And when I go into the bronchoscopy, I'll go through the vocal cords into the trachea and I will see the rings. And then I go further down, go into each of the bronchi, and as far as I can go and do whatever job I had to do. Okay, which part is complicated? I feel this is easy. How is this complicated? So easy. If you can see the anatomy and if you know the anatomy, it's easy. If you don't know the anatomy, then nothing can be easy. Okay, so that is going to be bronchoscopy. This again has very few complications. You can cause laryngeal edema. That is the only thing you need to worry about. First, that's it. Otherwise, these are very safe procedures. Trachea is not going to be perforated. Very difficult because the bronchoscope is very fine. Gastroscope can perforate the esophagus because there are narrowings. Bronchoscope will not perforate the trachea because there are no narrowings and the bronchoscope is very fine. It's a very thin instrument. So it's not going to cause too much trauma. Okay, fairly easy to do. Alright, anyone has any doubts, they can ask me. But I hope you got the gist of the things about the 4 procedures that we did, about the concept and the approach and how you're supposed to tackle all the procedures. Same pattern. Okay, in identification of the procedure, indications, contraindications, anesthesia, position, steps, complications. And complications will be early complications like injury and late complications. इतना ही करना है. If you want to subscribe to Plus or to Iconic, these are some of the plans for different duration, and this is my referral code to use, that is 10 surgery, and this is my Telegram group if you want to follow me on Telegram. Alright, tomorrow I'll be taking a YouTube class at 7 p.m. that is on anatomy of pancreas and spleen. You can join me for there. That will be MCQ pattern, not like this, not for third minor students. You can join me over there on YouTube. I will share the link on the Telegram group. Do remember to like this video, and if you have any doubts, you can always message me. Okay, so hope your life has become a little easy after today. I'll see you for my upcoming classes, and take care guys. Have a good day, study well, and I'll see you soon.